We'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order, please. I understand there are no public speakers,
correct.
Doug. So then the first order of business is the approval of the minutes of our December 15th, 2014 minutes, please. A second, please. All in favor? Approval of minutes? Any opposed? So moved, Doug. Doug, would you go through the work plan, please?
Yes, sir. There's one addition to the work plan. We're going to have an update on the BSC, the Business Service Center, at the July meeting.
Okay.
And next would be Budget Watch. In January, we do a
Do we have to?
I don't think so. Oh,
Do we? No.
well, we might as well. Why don't we just do it? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
A second, please. All in favor of approving the work plan? Any opposed? So moved.
Okay.
There's always a stickler.
No, that was a good point. Budget Watch.
Go ahead.
In January, we do a flash report on revenues from preliminary revenues from 2014. Expenses are too preliminary to be of much value at this point, so those will be covered in future months. Overall, we had positive revenue results for 2014. Passenger and toll revenues were overall favorable due to positive fourth quarter results. The breakdown of that was that New York City Transit revenue was better than the final estimate by $20.1 million, or 0.5%. That was primarily due to higher subway ridership and higher average fares. Long Island Railroad passenger revenues were $3.6 million, or 0.5% favorable due to higher ridership. Metro-North was actually $3.9 million unfavorable, reflecting lower non-commutation ridership. Going to toll revenue, that was B&T toll revenue was favorable due to higher than anticipated traffic volumes. We think that that was reflective of the lower gas prices and below normal snowfall, especially in December. Overall, so that was about $27 million in passenger and toll revenue that was favorable when compared with the final estimate. Moving to subsidies, payroll mobility taxes, the PMT, and MTA account fees were both slightly favorable. Petroleum business tax receipts were $4.6 million, or 0.7% favorable. TOA receipts were on target. Year taxes were higher than the final estimate by $14.1 million, which was 1.2% favorable. MRT collections were $9 million, or 2.6% favorable, while the New York City urban tax was $5.1 million, or 0.6% better. So overall revenue results when compared with the final estimate were favorable by $54 million. Half of that was from passenger and toll revenue, and the other half being higher subsidy collections in a series of different categories. And I'll take any questions.
Okay, if there are no questions, then we go right into Finance Watch. Pat, please.
Good afternoon. Finance Watch appears on page 20 of Director's Desk or your document materials today. Beginning with December 23rd, we report on a $2.9 million ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel hedge, competitively bid with our three existing counterparties, and in this case, J.P. Morgan Ventures Energy Corporation was the low bidder at an all-in price of $2.03 a gallon. This hedge covers the period of December 15 through November of 2016. Next, we have a handout because the pricing was occurred after the book was put together. This is our transportation revenue bonds series 2015A. I apologize, there's a typo at the top. It's 2015A. We issued $850 million of MTA transportation revenue bonds through a negotiated syndicate with J.P. Morgan Securities together with co-senior manager Williams Capital Group. Working on the transactions, Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood was bond counsel, and PFM was financial advisor. We issued the bonds in what I would call a historically low interest rate environment last week, and because of the conditions we saw, we actually increased the size of the offering to $850 million. It took two components. The first is the fixed rate component, which was originally scheduled to be $400 million. We increased the size to $600 million. And you can see that the all-in TIC, or true interest cost, of that component of the transaction was a 3.72%. Extremely low rates. Next, we had a SIFMA floating rate note, initially sized at $100 million, and due to strong investor demand for that piece of the transaction, together with the fact that it gave us some structuring flexibility, we increased that to $250 million. As you can see here, the all-in TIC on that was a 4.72%. That reflects a budgeted assumption of 4%. Currently, SIFMA is at 4 basis points, and the spread negotiated on that was 58. So all in, currently, we're less than 0.75% on that. Very attractive financing. There was an additional handout. I just wanted to point out a couple things and explain the dynamics that we saw in the market. We saw very strong investor demand in years 1 through 10 on the transaction, and then demand started to taper off. And then towards the back end of the loan, we saw strong investor demand on the long end. So what we did is that floating rate note gave us some very good flexibility to take advantage of the pockets of strong investor demand and reduce costs. And as you can see on the back page, we were able to upsize at historically low rates by adding $200 million in fixed rate bonds in pockets of strong demand, and adding $150 million of FRNs to fill in areas of lower fixed rate demand while maintaining overall level debt service. So happy to take any questions on this transaction, if there is any. I would just note that in the Finance Watch, we also have a number of remarketings we're working on. These are all Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, both senior and subordinate. And you'll be getting emails from me with remarketing circulars on those transactions. And you can see here there's a total of $559 million that we'll be remarketing. It involves, we've got 3 banks that are exiting the transactions. We've got 3 new banks coming in to substitute for the exiting banks. And then, of course, we're also doing 2 tranches of floating rate notes. Again, a product that's been very attractive for us. So if there's any questions, happy to take those. Okay. That's fine.
Next
That's
we
watch.
have the report and information item.
Okay. Okay. So we'll go to the next item, which is the this is the it's on our work plan. It's a report to the Finance Committee, the 2014 year-end review. And I think we're going to put these slides up. Is Adrian here? Everybody should have received this handout in their packets, and we can just go off that if the... Here's Adrian. Okay, great. Thanks, Adrian. So turning to the first page, just an update on our outstanding indebtedness. You can see here $34.1 billion, and of course the $850 million that I just talked about will be added to that. As you can see, the majority of our outstanding debt is in the fixed rate mode, $28.8 billion. We also have synthetic fixed rate, $2.4 billion, traditional variable rate or unhedged variable rate at $1.8 billion, and then bond anticipation notes of $850 million. Turning to the next page, you see how the debt is dispersed across our active resolutions, the majority being under the Transportation Revenue Bond Resolution at $20 billion, 59.8%. Following around, dedicated tax fund bonds at $4.9 billion, Triborough Senior and Triborough Subordinate at $6.8 and $1.7 billion respectively, and then still a small sliver of certificates of participation outstanding at $96 million. If you turn to the next page, you can see how the debt service looks going out, 2015 being the first year and 2047 being our final year. And we lay the debt service on by credit, the large blue being TRB, Transportation Revenue, and then dedicated tax, and then Triborough Senior, and lastly, Triborough Subordinate on the top. As you can see, our debt portfolio now has an all-in true interest cost of 3.91%, reflecting very attractive market conditions over the past several years, where we've not only been able to issue new money bonds in low-rate environments, but also take advantage of refundings as they've been available to us. Turning to the next slide, I won't read this. This is a good takeaway, and just in terms of a 2014 market recap, what we have seen in the year. high investor demand, relative safety from global volatility, and the appreciating value of the U.S. dollar contributed to a decline in Treasury rates throughout 2014. Just to give you a sense of current Treasury rates from when we issued bonds in the market last week, the 30-year Treasury bond was at a 2.4%, among the lowest levels we've ever seen. Turning to the next page, just a summary of the transactions. As we typically do, we issued about $2.1 billion in new money. The majority of it in the fixed rate mode, as you can see, $1.9 billion, and then $165 million in variable rate. We issued $130 million in refunding bonds for a present value savings of 13.3% or $19.2 million. We restructured the TBTA 2002E related escrows and $349 million of special obligation bonds. That was a particularly good transaction because, as you can see here, we released cash for the TBTA capital program, and then there was $36 million of operating cash release as well. We had $1.4 billion in remarketing of tendered obligations. As you can see here, we issued as fixed rate put bonds, floating rate notes, and then also bank-supported VRDBs. Through normal amortization, we retired $892 million of bonds last year, but net debt increased by $1.2 billion. And as you can see, the final note, total bond finance capital investments in 2014 were $2.53 billion. And later on in the presentation, we kind of give you a highlight of some of those projects that were financed. Turning to the next slide, this just provides you with a timeline of when we issued those new money bonds and in the market environment we were looking at. The red line representing the 20-year AAA MMD, or Municipal Market Data Index, which averaged 3.12% in 2014. And as you can see here, for each transaction we give you the highlights, and I won't repeat those because you've all heard them before, but this just gives you a sense of the market environment we had last year. Turning to the next slide, we talked about all those remarketings, and here you see top to bottom all the transactions that we did just to keep that variable rate portfolio healthy and active. And you can see the dominant product that we're using is the floating rate note. Again, it's in various indices and pricing on the right, depending on the put date. Next slide, just to keep you updated on our rating agency outreach. We stay in regular contact with all the rating agencies, particularly when there's been the release of a capital program, either an amendment or most notably a financial plan update. And so we've continued those good communications. I would just note here that on February 18th, S&P upgraded the long-term rating on MTA TRBs to A+ from A. And then on June 17th, S&P acted again to upgrade that credit to AA- from A+. And that reflects the implementation of new transit-related criteria that they released. We were very active in commenting on that criteria and getting in front of them quickly with an update on the credit that enabled them to get to that point. And as you can see here, the rest of our ratings are laid out for your information. Turning to the next slide, in addition to communicating regularly with rating agencies, we also do so with investors. And this just highlights some of our notable activity in the year. On April 2nd, we presented at the J.P. Morgan Public Finance, Transportation and Utility Conference. On September 19th, we presented on the Transportation and Economic Development panel at the Bank of America Merrill Lynch 2014 Investor Conference. On October 8th, we hosted an investor tour of the 2nd Avenue Subway project, and we included some of our largest institutional investors. And we had folks come from all around the country to attend that, and you see a few photographs here of our tour. 2014 was notable also for regulatory activity coming out of Washington. We had the Municipal Advisor Rule, which was implemented effective July 1st. And this, as a large entity that actively has always used financial advisors, it didn't really represent a big change for us. It certainly did for the rest of the street. that in terms of the way they communicate with us, there's a more formal sort of acknowledgement that the MTA does have a financial advisor. They have a fiduciary obligation to us. The underwriters, of course, do not. Those kinds of clear demarcations were really one of the benefits that came out of the rule. Again, because of our long history of using financial advisors, it just formalized what we've always been doing. Next, you have the MCDC initiative, or the Municipalities Continuing Disclosure Cooperation Initiative. And this involved an enormous undertaking, not only by the MTA, but also by all of our underwriters, to make sure that we've fairly represented our disclosure obligations over the past 10 years. I think that the upshot is that we have been, and we're doing things properly. We did not have any findings of non-compliance in this initiative, which is a notable outcome. Turning to the next slide, we have our 2015 financing calendar. We break it out here by quarter, and as you can see here, we're anticipating new money issuances in each quarter for $2.250 billion. We're estimating $2.2 billion of remarketings, and then about $1 billion of transportation revenue bonds will be currently callable on November 15th this year, and so we're actively keeping an eye on those and looking for the right opportunity to refund those. Our plan at this point is to wait until the bonds are currently callable later in the year and take advantage of that refunding at that time, but always watching the market conditions. Next, this provides just a summary of all the different remarketings that we'll be going throughout the year. Bits and pieces, but this debt is important because it represents some of our lowest cost debt in the portfolio. We stay short on the yield curve. It does require maintenance, if you will, in terms of reissuing and remarketing as conditions warrant. And then I would just point out there's an appendix to your packet. It gives you a summary of some of our notable capital investments that occurred in 2014, our 2014 debt issuance and remarketing activity, and then a cost of issuance summary, and I know a lot of you pay attention to that. I would just turn to that last page, and as you can see here, we paid $16.8 billion in bond issuance fees, $15.3 million in underwriters' discount. Is essentially compensation to the underwriting community. $1.8 million to bond counsel, financial advisor fee of $794,000, and so forth. And this just is an aggregate of all those fees we've paid throughout the year to maintain this debt portfolio and involved with the issuance of bonds. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Oh, yeah.
What is this is two parts.
Okay.
What is our annual debt service on the aggregate outstanding, and what is our debt service on the $2 billion of increase in 14?
So the good question. In terms of our current, for what I'm prepared for today, our estimated debt service that we're going to pay this year is approximately $2.4 billion.
That's for the entire...
That's all in, and that does include an assumption of the new money bonds that we'll be issuing this year.
And if you broke out the new money, do you know what that would be?
I certainly do. I don't have that with me, Chuck, but I'd be happy to follow up.
Could you send it when you can?
Sure. So you want the estimate on new money debt service?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. If we could just turn, Patrick, to slide 15 for a moment. One thing I missed that I wanted to make sure I pointed out is the minority and women-owned firms in our underwriting syndicate earned $2.360 million last year, or 17.9% of total compensation. And as you probably know, there are goals established for our underwriting activity of 10% to minority-owned firms and 10% to women-owned firms. As you can see here, we're just slightly short of that goal. We've taken action already. In the transaction that we priced last week, we increased the compensation to the minority-owned firm serving as special co-senior and increased their amount to 15% in that.
And do you have any sense as to how effective and able they have been?
I would say that by and large, those firms that have been rewarded and cycled up to that role have done a good job. They've done a good job covering us and providing banking service to us. And in the transactions themselves, they're having the additional underwriting desk involved in the pricing has been a helpful dynamic.
Excuse me, Artie.
Sure.
Considering the governor's new executive order,
Yes.
will we be in compliance with it?
In terms of our 2015 efforts, I believe we will, again, because we're providing additional compensation to those firms that are cycled into that role. I would just note also, because of we have a large group of senior managers, and in 2014 we didn't have one of the minority firms senior manage a deal. In 2015 we expect to, and that will also help the compensation. I would also note that the governor's recent executive order on service-disabled veteran-owned firms will take effect later this year. I believe it's April 1st. And in that case, the governor has identified 6% that should go to those firms. We have identified 2 such firms in our selling group, and I'll be working to present a proposal to elevate them up in the coming months so that they also can be cycled up to that special co-senior role. So we've got a number of goals we're going to be working very aggressively to meet. Sure.
Anybody else? If not, Doug, you want to take us, let's see, the next item would be the procurements.
Yeah, okay. There are 5 competitive procurements. Oh, hold on. 5 competitive procurements for headquarters for miscellaneous personal services for a grand total of $1,258,840.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second, please. All in favor? Any opposed? So moved, Doug.
Next on the agenda is Metro North. There is 1 competitive multi-agency procurement with New York City Transit, Long Island Railroad, Staten Island Railway, and MTA Bus for a total of $15,320,000.
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? Doug, so moved.
For Long Island Railroad, we have 1 walk-in competitive procurement managed by MTA Capital Construction for an RFP with a total cost of $428,900,000.
Second, please.
Yeah, it was sent out. You want to pass it? Yeah. Thanks. It was, I believe it was sent, it came in late last week, and it was sent out to all the board members. It wasn't,
Long story.
yeah, it didn't come in time for the printing of the book.
But this was, Mitch, this was discussed fully at the and approved at the committee. I know about this, and this, all right. So it was aired fully and everybody done?
We saw the 3 pictures.
Okay. Okay, so motion, please. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved, Doug.
Thank you. Next, we have New York City Transit MTA bus operations. There is 1 action item for New York City Transit requesting board approval to reprioritize scheduled bus purchases between the funded 2010 to 2014 capital program and the unfunded 2015 to 2019 capital program proposal.
Motion? Second? All in favor? Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you. There are, also for New York City Transit, there are 3 competitive procurements, 1 managed by MTA Capital Construction for a grand total of $124,919,000.
Motion, please. All in favor? Any opposed? Done.
Thank you. There are no items for bridges and tunnels. There are no items for FIMTAC. Next, we would move to Jeff in the real estate portion of the meeting.
Thanks, Doug. We have 4 action items this month described in staff summaries in the book. In the case of the item D, the actions relating to a project in Bronxville, we also have a requested resolution pursuant to SECRA. I'll just mention that, yes, Chuck?
I have problems or questions with respect to one and a problem with respect to the other. If this is a propitious time, may I ask?
Sure.
If you will look at page 43, well, no, I guess I got the wrong page number. The lease agreement on Gateway.
Okay.
There's a sentence there which on about the fifth or sixth line that reads, "The Newsstand LLC withdrew its proposal after being awarded other concession spaces at 14th and Union Square and 4750 Rockefeller Center." My question is, was there any parallelism there in terms of they withdrew and they got?
No, absolutely not. The group in question is the group I highlighted previously. They had a kind of a hip new concept that they premiered in Williamsburg. It's a startup. It's not a traditional newsstand business or operation, and I think they just wanted to make sure they hadn't bitten off more than they could chew.
All I wanted to do was highlight the fact that there was no parallelism.
Absolutely not.
The second one is a problem, and that's the Bronxville one.
Okay.
Now, I understand that at the Bronxville one, we get as well as we receive, if not better.
Right.
I have a number of problems with that. Let me deal with the technical ones. Okay. You indicate in there that there is an FEIS. I never saw that. But the resolution presupposes, it specifically says so, that we have received and have reviewed the FEIS. And that clearly cannot be because I don't think anybody got it.
I believe that was intended to be sent around, and I apologize if it wasn't.
Well,
Do we have Gordon Johnson here?
It seems to me that you can't vote on this where the resolution says we reviewed it and you didn't get it. So that's number one.
Yeah, I think that's
Number two problem is you're basing all of this on findings from the city or village of Bronxville that date back to 2005 and 2006, which, given the fact that 9-10 years have gone by, the world has changed in that area as it has throughout the world. And query, are those findings sufficient to support the resolution? I leave it to you and your staff to look at the legalities of it. I have some significant questions in that regard.
Those are certainly very fair procedural questions. And is Gordon Johnson here? He's our environmental counsel.
By the way, the representation in the fourth paragraph from the bottom of the staff summary, it reads, quote, "A copy of the FEIS has been provided to board members under separate cover for their review."
No, I take your point, Chuck. I thought that it had been. I apologize for
I
that.
think we got discs on that.
We did.
Yeah, we got,
We received it, I think, on Friday, or Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
yeah.
Mailing to us,
Okay.
yes.
The last point I raise is a substantive point.
Okay.
This zoning finding determination by the village of Bronxville focuses upon housing for seniors. It makes no mention of affordable housing. It makes no mention of compliance with the Westchester County Decree. It makes no mention of any of those events. My question, in light of what we did at the last meeting in this same area, is this an appropriate one to go forward until such time as Bronxville tells us whether or not they have done something to deal with affordable housing, whether they have done something in that regard? And I left out one other point. They're getting rid of 175 parking spaces. How are you going to replace them?
No. What this project nicely illustrates, although it's not our owned parking lot, is the feasibility and desirability of doing what we've showcased in Harrison. There will be a 300-car garage on that site. I believe 200 and few are dedicated to the municipal users. So it's a modest increase in the commuter parking.
Now tell me about what examination we've conducted, what our views are, if we have any, concerning the absence of any affordable housing.
Well, I will give you my own perspective on this, which is that this is a project that I think, from point of view of the railroad, is extremely beneficial. It provides us with increased access, improved access, new electrical facilities, improved stormwater, mitigation, drainage mitigation. This is not our property. My own view is that as a transportation agency, it's not our place to interject ourselves into that question.
My concern is the following. This governor has made it very clear that he is concerned with affordable housing. He is very much concerned with providing housing for minorities and for those who cannot otherwise afford it. We are a state public agency, and I think whether we get a tangible, immediate benefit for trains, but don't get one in those areas, puts to my mind a question. And I would accordingly ask that that be reviewed and ask by motion that this matter be laid over, together with the other one, well, the other one wasn't laid over, be laid over to the next meeting so that that issue can be reviewed.
I don't understand that, Chuck. I think what Jeff said is right. What our interest as the MTA is to do the best thing we can for the transportation system and the riding public. It's the town, the village, I guess, in this case of Bronxville, in my opinion, it seems like that's their responsibility to comply with minority housing and other regulations. That's not us. We don't own the property. We're not developing the property. We're just a beneficiary, our transportation system, of what the village of Bronxville is doing. And I can't see why we would want to hold this thing up. I agree with Jeff.
Andrew, let me give you my response to that. I believe our fiduciary responsibility transcends the railroad and its immediate need. That we have a public responsibility, as the governor has repeatedly pointed out, to provide affordable housing, to provide housing for the needy.
But it's not our property, Chuck.
Yes, but we are giving them a benefit. And it seems to me we can use that as a carrot to induce additional effort in that regard.
Suppose it hurts us by doing that.
Pardon me?
Suppose it hurts the riders, and suppose it hurts our transportation system by doing it. I don't think it hurts anything.
The question is, this is an improvement, not a negative. And my point is that if we can get affordable housing for people, if we can get housing for the needy, that we have an obligation as a board to do those things we can. The governor this morning announced a $50 million program to build additional transportation from Willets Point to LaGuardia as part of that kind of an effort. I think that we need to do that.
Jeff, how do you answer that? What do you feel?
I think for the MTA, it is certainly desirable for housing projects to meet the needs of affordability, but without subsidy. These things get done through subsidy, and whatever subsidy programs are available, they're not available through the MTA. So I don't know what we would be bringing to that party.
John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Might I make a suggestion, Chuck, that I don't know if it's necessarily the appropriate time in the committee to make a major policy change such as this to get the transportation system involved in affordable housing. So might it not be best to have a broader conversation about this with the leadership of the MTA and, in fact, seek the guidance of the second floor so that we can have a more direct understanding of what they want and not just what we suppose they want?
John, may I respond? You're entirely correct, as always. My point, however, is the following. At the last meeting, the chair of the MTA made very clear that his priority, that his obligation, was to pay attention to all of the needs of, not just those of transportation. And I applauded him, and I think everybody applauded him for that. It was the kind of forward-looking approach it's typical of Tom Prendergast. But it seems to me that here's a specific example where we are giving something, and we're getting something for it, but query, has there been any discussion on our part to see if we can induce affordable housing here? My view, and perhaps I'm alone in that regard, my view is that I have an obligation to do those things I can to provide those opportunities, whether they are within the realm of MTA, but wherever we have a chance. I'm perfectly prepared to have that discussion, but I would like to couple it with a discussion that is had by the responsible MTA officials with the Village of Bronxville to start looking at the 21st century, if they haven't done so already.
And the only thing I would add, Chuck, is before we have conversation with the Village of Bronxville about such a policy decision, that we have a greater discussion internally here first. And what I would ask is maybe the chairman could come back certainly before Wednesday and speak to us and give us some update, Thursday, some update on what his discussions internally have been until then, before we start to make decisions at this committee.
John? Mitch?
Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
I think John Banks has the right approach. To discuss something like this, absent knowledge, a context, and internal discussion is putting the cart so far in front of the horse, I wouldn't even know how to describe it. There are zoning issues. There are project feasibility issues. There are issues with respect to what are the likelihood of 50 units in Bronxville being affordable, given the construction costs, given the other costs in a situation such as Bronxville. There are so many issues. There are local control issues. There are so many issues, I couldn't even begin to sum them up in this meeting. So to suggest that we, a transportation agency, Chuck, should stick our nose without any discussion, analysis, or thought in the middle of a relatively small housing project up in Westchester is just incorrect. It's just wrong. But there's one question I do have, Jeff. It's a legal one, with respect to approval of environmental review going back 7 years or something. What is the answer?
Again, I'm not an environmental lawyer. I wish Gordon Johnson were here to address that. I will tell you that the Village of Bronxville has gone forward on the basis of these findings. We are an involved agency, not a lead agency. So if there's a
well, can we approve this subject to getting a legal confirmation that in fact
I think that would be entirely appropriate.
Okay, but the rest of it, I think our fiduciary duty is for transportation and for our riders, and the HFA is a great agency that does housing in the state, and in the city there's a housing agency that does wonderful work, and there's so many policy issues with respect to housing, land use, zoning, finance, feasibility, etc., that to put them just in front of approval of this is not appropriate.
That's what John said. Mitch?
I have very strong feelings on this issue. However, I don't want to hold up this committee in that regard. I agree with John. We should probably just move this forward. The chairman at the last meeting did indicate that he was going to come back to us with additional information regarding the Harrison situation, let alone the Harrison and Bronxville situations, which even makes it more important to do so. There are a variety of social, public policy issues that are involved in these transactions. Depending upon which side you happen to be on at any moment in time, you may make different deliberations regarding that. We are providing a benefit. The question that we have to face, and the chairman has to face, is for what purpose are we providing that benefit other than the development of that project on its own? There are additional benefits, some written and some unwritten, that go along with that and go along with these transactions. I would support the endeavor to move this along. This is not, even with our board approval, if it happens on Thursday, this is not happening immediately. But I would encourage, again, the chairman and other MTA officials to come back to us with a policy determination and suggestion and recommendation to this board about not only these two projects, but the infinite number of others that will follow these two. And there will be a substantial number of them going forward. And I think it's important that this board, getting as much guidance as necessary from as many people as appropriate, comes to some conclusion so that we do not have these discussions project by project, but that everybody understands, and the director of our real estate and others understand what our policy is, whatever it is, before we enter into these agreements rather than after we enter into these agreements. So I would, support moving it forward, but I think this project only exacerbates the importance of coming to a conclusion on this issue.
Generally associate with what Mitch and John, and to some extent what Chuck has raised. My question is, does this need to be done this Thursday? Is there more time? Because the conversation that we're talking about having and the clarification that needs to take place on these issues, as John has correctly pointed out, this is a serious policy issue, is going to take more than 2 days.
So why don't we do this? I think the best thing to do with the thing is to move it forward. Jeff, you're going to get council opinion on this thing, right? Before we take the vote on Thursday. And at that point, and I think we'll talk to Tom about it, but let's move it forward, and if he decides to do something, then we can discuss it on Thursday at the meeting.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, can I make a suggestion, an additional suggestion? There's no doubt in my mind that this isn't the last time this issue will emerge. Especially as we talk about innovative ways to fund our capital program. We're talking about value capture. My God, that opens up an array of issues that you can't possibly decide in the scope of one meeting on one issue. So it really does require a broad look at this and a broad policy proposal that is beyond our ability to do right here at this meeting on one issue. So with all due respect to everybody who has, as I do, strong feelings on the issue of affordable housing, let's first determine what our appropriate and proper role is on this and other issues, and invite a broader statement of policy on this, so we at least are not flying blind on every issue.
Okay, so I think what we should do, I agree with that. That's basically what I was saying. I think that's what everybody's saying. So why don't we move this forward, and we'll have this discussion, and it'll be up to the chairman then on Thursday whether he wants to go forward with this, issue a policy. We do need, I agree with the statement that we should have council clearance though on this thing, on the environmental.
Yeah. Well, let me be clear. Let me be clear. These findings were prepared by our in-house environmental counsel. So there's no doubt in my mind, but that he believes that the findings are appropriate and adequate.
Jeff,
I will ask him to speak directly to the question.
It's a 9-year-old.
Jeff, 9-year-old.
I understand. Okay, I understand.
Okay. So why don't we move this forward,
let me just
Jeff,
say
and you will discuss this with Tom?
Yes.
Okay. Is that fair? Move this thing forward. Jeff will discuss it with Tom today or whenever, as soon as he can get hold of him, prior to the Thursday meeting, and the general policy issue will be brought up, I'm sure, by Jeff.
That's the answer.
That's the answer. Okay? Okay, so motion, please, to move all the real estate items? Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Same for myself.
Okay, so please do that. Doug? Yep.
2 abstentions.
Who's keeping the minutes?
Yeah, Marcia is.
Marcia, make sure those abstentions are noted. Okay, second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motions of real estate items are moved. And now we need a motion, please, to adjourn our meeting.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much. Jeff, will you get some clarification?